Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how you can actually make super high quality decisions inside of your agency or your service-based business. This is something that a lot of the big players in business really talk about. Jeff Bezos is very famous for saying that if he just makes one or two high quality decisions per day, then he's had a good day. And when it comes to selling services, there is a technique that I like to use and I think is very popular by people who are successful, and it comes down to actually breaking down the process and defining what you are actually solving for, because there's a big leap between where you are now and signing a few clients. And that process, there's a whole bunch of different metrics and a whole bunch of different systems that you can use to actually interpret the data and understand where the problem actually is. So if you're not familiar with me, my name is Ben Lister. I help agency owners to save thousands and thousands of hours by sometimes even doing their outreach for them, so they can start to work on the agency rather than in the agency. So I'm going to jump into the computer and I'm going to show you how this thing works. Okay, so let's say, for example, you are looking to sign some clients through cold email. Okay, and so there's many stages to this process, right? And even when you have a few select stages that you've broken it down to, you could probably break it down to even more stages than you actually believe. So let's say, first of all, you need to do some lead sourcing, right? You need to find out who is actually the people that you're going to email. Next, you then need to go and actually, create email copy. You then would need to, for example, send the emails. Then, of course, the amount of people that are going to respond to you. So we're going to have, positive replies. Then we're going to go for booked calls. Then we're going to go for people who actually showed up, the show rate. And then we're going to go for the offer rate, so the amount of people that you actually made an offer to and you are actually a good fit. And then the closing rate, so how many people you actually signed as a client. And now if you want to even go one step further than this, after your closing rate, you could have clients who stayed on for more than 1 month. And there's many different categories down this list where you can go, right? The very first moment when we actually find a lead and we find someone, all the way to actually signing them and then closing them for an additional month, so they basically renew. So I'll change this one actually to clients renew. There's a lot of different processes in here, right? And if you don't have a client right now, or if you're looking to sign clients and you can't sign as many as you want to, something in here isn't going correctly, right? There's something in this system which isn't within KPI, and there might be multiple of these. But if you start to make a decision of, I'm not signing clients right now, and you don't actually know why, because you just think, maybe it's the email copy, but I'm not too sure. Maybe it's the fact that I can't close anyone. Maybe it's the fact that no one's showing up, and you can't really understand and you don't really know, then you're not going to be able to make what we consider a high quality decision. When you're not going to make a decision on the thing that actually matters, okay? And so if you imagine this as just one giant funnel, okay? Okay, so let's say we source 1,000 leads, right? And then the email copy, such as the subject line, is going to indicate how many people actually open this email up, okay? So let's say, for example, you have an email open rate of 60%. So there's 600 people there that actually open this. Then once we go to send the email, actually, I put these ones the wrong way around. Let me just quickly. So the sending of the emails is actually going to be how many of those emails deliver into the inbox. So if the email doesn't land in the inbox, if it lands in the spam, so your email deliverability, then at this point, there's nothing that you can really do, right? And so we want to realistically have 100% of the emails that land in the inbox, and there is ways of doing that. But realistically, with a lot of the systems that you might have, especially if you don't have the knowledge to do this, you're probably looking at about 500, right? About 50%. Of those 500, the amount of people that don't actually click on the email because they see it and they actually read the email, and they don't just immediately put it into their spam folder or immediately put it into the trash, you may be talking 50% of those as well. So now we're talking 250, okay? And once we actually have 250 people that have seen the email, we then want to calculate how many people are going to respond to this in a positive way. So not just people that say not interested, or people that respond with, maybe some kind of vague question or something, like someone who actually is interested and someone who's, asked a positive question and it looks like they might be interested in potentially buying from you or interested in learning more. And so a good positive reply rate from the amount of emails actually sent would be around about 3 to 4% if you're doing personalized emails. So if we take that, if we say, for example, if there's 250 people that see it, if about 40 of those actually respond positively, that's pretty good, to be honest with you. And then booked calls from that, you're probably looking at about 50% of those. So let's say, for example, it'd be 20. And then the show rate, some people's show rate is absolutely terrible, and there is ways to do this and increase the show rate. And this video isn't about how to individually increase each of those, just about how to make good decisions. Let's say the show rate, for example, we want to aim for at least 80%, But let's say, for example, that it's just 10. It's just 10. There's something that's not right with the show rate here. And so now the offer rate, the amount of people that jump on the call that we could actually make an offer to, it should be realistically about 75%. So let's just say this is 7. And then the closing rate here is going to be, it should be 20%, but a lot of people are below that. If it's 15%, for example, this just might be 1. And then the clients that renew, if you're just starting out, if you're not having too many clients that renew, it might be 0, right? And so what you can see here is that we've sent 1,000 emails, or we've sourced 1,000 leads, and we've sent 1,000 of those emails. Only 500 of those have actually landed in the inbox. And so now that we have this data, and obviously this is just made up, this is just an example, what we can start to see here is certain things will be outside of KPI, right? And so we can start to track these percentages, so this is 50% of the total of this is, another 50%. And so once I've actually gone and put all the percentages in here, right, you can start to see which of these metrics is actually in KPI. And now, because you'll know a few KPIs, obviously, once you've done this a few times, it's going to be easy for you to actually spot the thing that is missing here. And so, obviously, the KPIs really vary a lot. So, for example, the email inbox, the deliverability, it really should be quite high. You can see here is that if we instantly increase this to 100%, this is going to double, everything on here. So, you're going to have 2 clients right now, and you're going to have 14 offers, and you're going to have 20 sales calls, for example, that actually show up. But what we can see is that a lot of these metrics now are in KPI, right? So for example, 16% of the people that actually see the email reply positively, that's actually very good. 50% of people who reply positive actually jump on a call or book a call, that's pretty good. But then we can see here, 50% of the people that booked a call, show up for the call, this is way out of KPI. And so if, for example, if I just created another one of these, and if we were to fix this now, and so let's say the short rate was not perfect, let's say it was 75%, and so this goes up to 15. And so now once I input this data in, just by increasing the short rate by, going in from 50% to 75%, which is still underneath KPI, there's a lot of work you can do there. You can get that really to 85% plus, even with the coldest amount of traffic. The closing rate here is going to go from 1 to 1.5, right? So obviously between 1 and 2 clients, but that still gives you an extremely higher chance to getting that second client in, just by increasing this one metric. And so we can start to see, okay, if we nail this and if we have an 80%, 85% short rate, now what's going to start to happen is all of these other metrics beneath that are going to start to increase. And ultimately, the one that truly matters is, how many clients that we have and how many are actually signing and how many are renewing. If, for example, the clients renewing is, 0%, and you're not getting them to renew, that's not really anything to do with this system as a whole. It's more to do with how you actually handle your service delivery. But I guess it all comes down to one service. It all comes down to one system. So every single bit of the business is then coming together, and really the amount of clients are renewing, the churn rate, I guess it's the opposite of the churn rate, but the amount of clients that you have that come back month after month after month is really just an indicator of how the whole business acts as one system. And so now if I come back to the system that had a 50% show rate, right, this was the bad metric, was the show rate. If, for example, I'm not signing these clients, I'm having a few sales calls, and I am good at closing, but it's not fantastic. What's going to start to happen now is, if I make a decision without understanding this data and I just say, maybe I just go off feeling, maybe I just say, it's the email copy. I need to change my email copy. I need that one bit of copy that's really going to propel the system forward, and it's going to mean I sign tons and tons of clients. Okay, so let's start tweaking the email copy. Okay, and now let's say, for example, we get the email copy, it's pretty good as it is, but we get it incredible, right? We just focus on this. We really research the niche. We tried loads of different stuff, and we get that email copy up to 55%, okay? And so 55% of people now would actually open the email and, read the actual email, and then this would, of course, increase the positive replies, right? And obviously this is pretty high, so we're not going to get too much better than that. And this is really talking about, and this is really being quite optimistic here, because we already have a good open rate. We already had a good positive reply rate. So now when we start to increase certain things and change certain things around, we're actually being quite lucky if we do get a better one, because we're basically at the peak of the email copy and the peak of the positive reply rate. But let's say, for example, that we do manage to increase it. Okay, and so once I actually plug these numbers in then and I go through, you can start to see now that not much has really changed. If we just compare this to the one that we did before, so this was the one where we had the bad short rate and we didn't actually, this is before we changed anything from the first one that we did, you can see that we've gone from a closing rate of, about 1 client to about 1.1, 1.2 clients. Now, we've got very lucky here because we've actually increased on the email copy, which was one of the best parts about the system anyway, and we've actually increased on the positive reply rate, which again was one of the best parts of the system anyway. And if we had to change certain things, there's no guarantee that this would actually increase. There's a very, very likely probability that the email copy that you test out and you try is worse than what you're actually doing right now. And if we look into the data, it's easy to see that this could actually be a real possibility, because many of the email copies and the different things and the deliverabilities that you have, many of the different systems are not going to get 16% of people that actually read the email respond positively. That's really high. And so by actually increasing this, we've been pretty lucky here. It's more likely that you're going to decrease it. And so if that does actually happen, then you're going to get less clients than you're actually looking at right now. But if it does, for example, the effect that it's going to have is so small, simply because we have this huge bottleneck in here, which is the show rate, which is 50%. And this just means that every single booked call that comes through, only 50% of those are actually going to show up. And it's just this huge negative divider that is going to be just crushing the amount of clients that you're closing and crushing the amount of deals that you have, simply because you can't see this as an issue. Now, of course, if you're the one that's taking the calls and not many people are showing up, it's quite easy to understand. But when you break down these numbers, you can see it exactly how this works really, and basically where the problem actually lies. And so the cool thing about this is, once you actually know where the problem is, you know how to fix it, because fixing problems is actually not that difficult once you actually know what it is the problem is, okay? If you are looking at a problem like this, for example, and you are going from one big question, which is, how do I sign more clients? And now we reveal this data and we interpret this data and we can see very clearly that one of these metrics is out of KPI and it should be way higher. Then the question now becomes, how can I improve my show up rate? The questions are solving the same problem, but one is now way easier to solve. Is, how do I improve my show up rate? Okay, maybe we do more touch points. Maybe we set reminders. Maybe we actually give the guys a phone call before they actually have a call. Maybe we can give them more information about the business before they join. Maybe there's something that we can do, right? And there's so many different things where you can test out. And now that you know this is the problem, we're now solving the same issue, which is, how do I get more clients? Is basically, how do I improve my show up rate? Because if you can improve your show up rate, then you can improve the amount of clients you're signing. And so I hope you can start to really see here, once we put one thing into the system and it slowly trickles down, we have all these KPIs, which are basically based on how effective each individual parts of these systems are. And this applies to anything, So for lead sourcing, for example, where do you actually get your phone numbers from? Have they been called 1,000 times before? That's one aspect of the system. And then it's your script. How do you present your script? What kind of questions do you ask? And then, of course, it's the way that you speak. How confident are you? What kind of tonality do you use? And then maybe it's the reminders that you have on your Calendly. That's going to affect your show up rates. All these kind of things. And so each system that you have, whether it's cold calling, cold DMs, cold emails, anything when it comes to even service delivery or, inbound channels, if you have your own YouTube channel or social media, anything like that, everything comes down to these individual metrics, whether it comes to, how many people see the post, how many people like the post. And once you can start to identify the bottleneck, like 1,000 people see my post every single day, but only 2 people are click and like on it, then maybe you have an issue with the actual content creation. The content itself isn't as good as it could be. And so once you know this issue and you have this issue in front of you, now you can solve a much bigger problem by asking a much more simple question. And so one thing you might be asking is, how do I know if something is actually in KPI? Like, what is the KPI? And so first of all, if anything is at 0%, then that probably is out of KPI, because that's definitely not going to be the KPI 0. So that's always something to consider. And you can even compare with similar agencies to yours. Lots of people in this space will answer questions if you do message them or you do email them and stuff like that. And what they will start to do is just basically, help you out with certain things. If you say, I'm doing a similar system to you, I know you're signing clients through email, we get a current positive reply rate of 5%. What do you guys get? Is there anything that we can maybe help each other out on? And having that understanding of similar agencies that are in your position and knowing what kind of response rate they get and what KPIs they get is also good to compare yourself and also see if yours is below theirs. If it is, then there's obviously something that you can do to get it to their level. But when it comes to email specifically, the email open rate, we don't really track too much, but realistically, your open rate, if you do track it, should be 60-70% plus. Your positive reply rate, from the total amount of emails that you send, if you get more than 3% of people replying positively, that's pretty good. I would probably be satisfied with, depending on the niche, I'd probably be satisfied with around 2.5% people positively replying. And then a booking rate. If you get 1% of people that you send an email to actually book on a call, whether they show up or not, they just book a call, that's a very good rate. If you go for 1% as a minimum, that's quite good. I would normally tweak things until we get to that point, and that's what we do with a lot of our clients as well. And then show up rate, it needs to be 80% or more. If it's not, there's something that you're doing wrong. And then closing rate, realistically, from the amount of people that you actually make an offer to the amount of people that you close, it should be quite high. It should be at least 30% people that make an offer. The total number of shows that you have, so if you have 100 people that show up to your call, you should be closing probably 20 of those. And obviously it depends on the offer. If you have a complete no-brainer offer, you could aim for a lot higher than that, like more like 50%. But if you have an offer that is, maybe pretty difficult to sell, it's quite a high ticket, you're probably looking at lower amounts, maybe, like 15-20%. So if you are looking for someone to sign clients for you on a done for you basis, then go ahead and click the first link in the description. It's not some, crazy submission. You're not going to send your phone number, your email, anything like that. It's just a video of myself explaining how my company does this. And of course, you don't have to click that. Of course, if you just want to watch this content and enjoy the videos, then that's completely fine. But if you did enjoy the video, then go ahead and click the like button and comment if you want me to cover anything specifically that you would like to see, and subscribe if you want to see more. Appreciate you watching this one to the end. Cheers.